Hi everyone, welcome to Dataverse. This is our monthly live stream where we share new data on trends from surveys that we've conducted. And we also have a conversation with experts so they can give their advice to everyone listening and watching. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Wronski. I work on our research team here at SurveyMonkey. Today we're going to be talking about some new survey results that we have on reimagining work. So the whole idea behind this Dataverse series is to provide interesting data for people who want information on workforce issues. So I have two great experts here today to go over some of the recent findings. Mike and Sam, why don't we start? Sam, can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Samantha Bufton. I'm the Senior Vice President of Product at SurveyMonkey. I've been with the company since 2013, and I'm focused on the product strategy for our surveys, integrations, and forms products.
Great. And Mike is here as well. Mike, can you go ahead and introduce yourself too?
Yeah, I'm Mike Amerlaan. I work on the Microsoft 365 ecosystem marketing team. So I work across a number of the different integrations and products that connect with Office, with Microsoft Teams, with SharePoint, a whole bunch of different applications. So I work on the marketing side of things like Microsoft Teams.
Great. We're so glad to have Mike here. I'm also very glad to have Sam here. These are two product and collaboration experts, so they have lots of great advice for everyone. My job here is to kind of facilitate the conversation and let them be the experts, but I can bring in some interesting data points to kind of jump off here. So to start off, SurveyMonkey has a research team. Part of our job is to conduct interesting surveys of the US population. Sometimes we do international surveys. Sometimes we focus on certain segments of the population, like young people or workers. We ran a recent survey when we started this discussion with Microsoft a few weeks ago, where we surveyed more than 3,000 workers across the US. We asked them kind of how life has been now that everything has been, everyone has been working from home. One of the main findings from that part of research was that workers are saying that their connection with colleagues, their productivity at work, their engagement levels with work, all those things have really taken a hit now that we've been all working from home since kind of the start of the coronavirus. And so that's kind of why we wanted to bring in Sam and Mike today. These are two people who really know a lot about different software and technology tools that you can use to stay connected with colleagues and to stay productive and engaged with your job. So here's a couple of data points from the survey. We found that 43% of workers overall and 60% of those who've been working from home say they're relying on technology to be able to do their job more than they were before the coronavirus outbreak. So just to kind of set the stage there, Mike and Sam, I'm wondering to kind of start off the conversation, and maybe we can start with Mike on this one. Does that sound right to you? Is that what you're seeing when you're looking at trends from just within Microsoft? Can you give us your perspective on that?
Certainly it's something we're seeing on the Microsoft Teams side. In late April, we had over 75 million daily active users. So this is, almost doubling from sort of like maybe 6 months beforehand in terms of the overall usage. So there's just a lot more new users inside of Microsoft Teams. And of course, they're spending a lot more time inside of meetings. So we had over 200 million meeting participants in a day. These are just people who are connecting and doing all the, those kinds of meeting activities, whether it's, replicating one-on-one conversations, whether it's, team meetings with 500 people, just a lot more meeting activity inside of Microsoft Teams. I think the other interesting thing is we see that, using applications inside of Microsoft Teams as you're collaborating with your colleagues, that's tripled. In fact, that's kind of outpaced all up usage. And so what I think that starts to say is you're seeing a lot more usage of applications, people putting together different tools to maybe adapt to different facets of the new remote work type of behaviors that we're seeing over the last 3 to 4 months for sure.
Great. Sam, how about from the SurveyMonkey side? Are you seeing anything in particular there too?
Yeah, just agreeing with Mike, this is a time of really rapid change and organizations need to adapt very, very quickly. So I think that, collaboration and feedback are really key during this time. And so we are seeing an overall increase in the number of survey responses that are collected by our products. And because we, to Mike's point, we released the SurveyMonkey app for Microsoft Teams earlier this year, and we've seen a very big increase in usage since the start of COVID-19. I think, Teams really need to connect to each other. They need to understand individual challenges that employees might be facing. They need to understand, what is working from a team engagement and collaboration perspective. And so the combination of sort of the feedback tool within this very collaborative environment has been really empowering for many organizations. I think, we've seen that people are really using our templates. People might be collecting this kind of feedback for the first time. And so being able to leverage a template built by experts has been very empowering for many organizations. We've also seen that, organizations are increasingly reliant upon professional services to set up these tools and enable them to be effective within their organizations. And integrations are key, enabling data to flow between applications and systems of record so that people can collaborate much more easily. We're also seeing that more organizations are collecting health information. And so we're seeing significant demand for our HIPAA-enabled features. And also people are using things like SMS surveys and QR codes to go beyond the typical digital channels and actually be able to reach people, at a point of service or via mobile so that they can contact people wherever they are. So I think, collaboration, integration is key. And these tools are really empowering organizations to stay in touch with their employees, but really adapt as the situation continues to change.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, like we see a lot of applications, like let's say whiteboarding applications, just to replicate that what you might have had in the hallway. I can use a whiteboarding application to go draw on it. And I think, SurveyMonkey fills a really, need that you would see in sort of physical environments, reading the room with 200 people in them, with 300 people in them. And so SurveyMonkey is, facilitating those kinds of, getting the pulse of the team, those kinds of types of tasks that ordinarily you might have, done sort of physically inside of a room. I think the other benefit is that with the templates capability, organizations really benefit from having all that expertise kind of put into a template that makes it easier to kind of, make informed surveys and informed questions.
Yeah, and I think both of you mentioned new use cases that have popped up as a result of the coronavirus. Sam mentioned the HIPAA capabilities that SurveyMonkey has kind of broadened and expanded recently. And Mike, I know there are some maybe virtual visits. Do you see people that are using kind of technology for things that they didn't used to use them for before?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, for example, one example might be that people are kind of stitching together different tools, maybe getting the data in one form and sort of putting it together into a reporting tool to kind of build, the right software experiences to help them adapt. And so in healthcare, yes, virtual visits, having, patient care journeys through Microsoft Teams where you can actually meet with your patients. That's one reality that a lot of organizations are picking up. Just even simple things like, hey, we want to, if there's a patient who we suspect has COVID-19 in the hospital, we just want to have like one button we can push, which sends off the right notifications to the right, folks, so that we take the proper precautions to isolate and those kinds of things. So even little tiny applications like that, like a button that sends the right notifications, more and more people are putting the right tools together.
Yeah, and I would just add that, many patients or customers are really sort of using these kinds of technologies for the first time. And so being able to do all of this within a platform that is so familiar, such as Microsoft, really enables people to get up and running very quickly with sort of interaction modes that they're very used to. So I think that it's really empowering, not only for the organization, but also for the individual who's trying to provide feedback to be able to do it all seamlessly within one environment.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I know I've been sending more emails recently and more messages and doing all those things than I ever recall doing before. I guess that kind of leads us to the second data point that I wanted to make sure to cover when we talk today. And that is kind of this question of what are people doing now that they weren't doing before? So we used to chat with our colleagues at our desks or go grab a coffee to get a break. But how are we spending our time while we're at work these days? So we asked a few questions in the survey about literally what things are you doing on a daily basis that you weren't doing before? Are you spending more or less time doing all these following things? And we included things like making video calls, sending and checking emails, checking instant messages, making phone calls, gathering information, attending meetings. And what we found is that more than 4 in 10 workers say they're spending more time on video calls, emails, and instant messaging. Those were kind of the top performers. And for people who've been working remotely, those numbers are even higher. So can you take us, Mike, I think you're the best one to kind of start us off on this one. Can you take us behind the scenes on any of these trends? Those are things that Microsoft is, that's right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. I mean, certainly we're seeing, the biggest increase in video calls. I think your survey said, over 44%, more time spent making video calls. I mean, I think the thing that we see is not just, replicating maybe, hallway meetings or sort of those informal conversations that you would have for a work purpose. But, I mean, I guess anecdotally, this is maybe not so much data, but we do see a lot of, organizations just scheduling meetings for, having, ways to connect with their colleagues. And so, at Microsoft, for example, on my team, we have a book club now. We have, trivia hours. We have, different, maybe sort of weekly, we will schedule like 3 or 4 meetings just to, say, how was your weekend? Connecting those kinds of things. And so the net is not only are meetings increasing by virtue of, having to do more work remotely, but also just to kind of replicate some of those social, cues. And I think the benefit of it is that we do see, more people actually being more empathetic. We had a survey that said over 60% of workers now had more empathy for their colleagues, in part because, you can see my background, you can maybe see my kids if, they're sort of walking through. So there's a benefit to it. But there is also just a broader, need for everyone to kind of work on their plans, work on their work environments, and also deal with, maybe a little bit of video meeting fatigue in the sense of, making plans to make sure that, if you have an 8-hour day full of meetings, we actually did some research to find that can actually be more tiring than 8 hours of in person sitting inside of a room type of meetings. And so making sure that you're doing things to schedule more downtimes, maybe make all meetings half an hour, because I think we find that there's a lot more drop off 30 to 40 minutes inside of a meeting, and just maybe scheduling meetings to be 25 minutes so that everyone has kind of a 5-minute break. That's certainly a lot of what we're seeing. We also designed a capability in Microsoft Teams that we have called Together Mode, which is kind of a way to actually present everyone in a meeting kind of in a broader room. And we find that that's a little bit less intimidating maybe than having kind of a wall full of, different faces where you kind of feel like you have to be on a stage a bit more. So, informal environments, different social tools can help with the kind of the video calls and all the different calls that we're making.
Yeah, I mean, just doubling down on that, I would say that, video calls are just, part of the everyday now. And I think, to Mike's point, it really does help you build empathy for people's different working environments and sort of, the context that they are sort of managing through. I think, but, we're also using video calls for socializing, right? So we've done virtual escape rooms, we've done a virtual cooking competition. So using it for both sort of the business connectivity, but as well as maintaining those social relationships between the people on the team. I really think that, the collaboration platforms like Microsoft Teams have been really powerful because all of the messaging capabilities and the fact that you can share documents and information so easily with the extended team means that you don't necessarily always need to be on a call, right? You can have this kind of asynchronous collaboration as well. So that has been really powerful. We've also seen, a lot of organizations are onboarding new team members remotely and having this collaboration environment where a lot of the team's context and information is shared and is documented within one space really enables that person to understand team culture, to understand a lot of what the team is focused on very, very quickly. I would say that flexibility has been key, right? I think that we all went into this situation thinking that it was just going to be, a short period. But what we're learning is that, we are likely to be working in this way for a lot longer. And what we saw initially was organizations really just sort of, transpose exactly what they were doing in the office into this virtual environment. And to Mike's point, people are starting to get fatigued and, context is changing, school is about to start up. And so parents are going to be dealing with a whole different set of circumstances. And so it's just been really critical for organizations to keep listening, to keep learning, to keep hearing from their employee base as the situation changes, as we get a clearer picture for how long we're likely to be in this situation, as well as how the situation is evolving, so the organizations can really dynamically adapt the tool set, how people are working together as the situation evolves. And really, this is where SurveyMonkey and the Microsoft Teams integration really is very, very powerful, because you can hear from teams right within sort of the tool that they are using every single day. It's powerful, rapid, ongoing feedback that enables the organization and the team to adapt, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, just one other quick data point to add to kind of double onto what Sam was saying, which is we are also seeing 41% of time spent increased checking instant messages. We find that actually the set of messages that are sent are actually happening increasingly outside of work hours, excuse me. So early in the morning, late at night, and in particular on the weekend. And so one of the things that we've had to do inside of our organization is to say, like, the first reaction is, okay, my manager is messaging me on the weekend. Does that mean that I've got to go respond on a Sunday? And what we've tried to do is just set the expectation that, people have a need for more diversity in terms of when they want to go work, because, everyone's situation is, increasingly diverse and different. People may need to, care for their kids when they're, doing school hours and those kinds of things. And so, it's kind of something to where we will see a little bit more diversity in hours of the day where people will go respond. And just setting those expectations, having managers say, like, look, just because I send a message on Sunday, that does not demand, like sort of an immediate response. And there's tools and teams to, change your notification strategy so that you don't get notified by it. But, just reminding people to take advantage of those tools is pretty important. And then just one other data point, which is, people are spending more time gathering information. They don't have the ability to just pop their head into somebody's, space and say, did you go do this thing, or did you go, how did you go about this process over here? And so integrating tools like SurveyMonkey into Teams is great, because it provides a more central location where everyone can go find something to hopefully reduce the amount of time that they have to spend finding the right tools and the right information.
Yeah, those are great points, and they also set me up very well for our last data point that I wanted to kind of mention here. And I wanted to kind of end the conversation by looking ahead. So both of you mentioned kids going back to school, and Sam, you in particular called out the fact that we've been doing this for a lot longer than I think any of us had anticipated going in. And so as we look ahead, one of the big questions is, how long are we going to keep working from home? How long is this environment going to last? So in our survey, we asked about kind of the short term. We asked whether people think it's likely that they're going to still be working from home in the fall, or whether they'll be allowed to work from home in the fall. And workers were kind of split. So we had 53% saying that it was likely, 45% saying it's not likely that they would still be working from home this fall. But really the division there was between people who have already been working from home, 84% of whom said that will likely continue for them. And then for everyone who has been continuing to go into their usual workplace, a majority of them said that they would still have to continue doing that. So I guess my question for you is, and Sam, maybe you're the best one to kind of jump off on this point, but do you see any changes coming? Or are there things that we've learned that we can do better going forward? Or kind of from your perspective, how sustainable is this? How long can this last?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of, the split in the data really sort of, reflects the fact that this is going to be a dynamic situation, and organizations are just going to have to continue to adapt. And so I just think that, integration, connecting these tools, technologies, and data, allowing data to flow seamlessly between tools is just going to be critical, because, either you are empowering a fully remote and distributed team, or you're, essentially taking the work that you've done while you're in a remote work situation and sort of bringing that back to the office. So connectivity and having this shared context really enables you to be very flexible in terms of location, and to translate everything that you have created between whichever sort of working context you're dealing with. I think also that, as I said, templates are just going to continue to be extremely useful and powerful. I think, we started off this situation with organizations really focused on symptom tracking and monitoring. As we expect a vaccine and sort of trials to be released, it's going to be critical to understand efficacy of those things. And so the different types of feedback that organizations are going to be collecting is going to evolve over time. And so pre-configured templates are going to enable people to sort of get that kind of feedback very quickly and effectively when the need arises. So I would say integrations, connectivity, and sort of learning from best practice are really the things that are going to create a lot of value for organizations just as we continue to steer through this.
Makes sense. Mike, do you feel similarly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the one lesson that I, have over the last 3 or 4 months is not to assume that, okay, well, the work is shut down. We'll be back in my office in 3 weeks, those kinds of things. And so if anything, who knows what the next 6 months will bring. The best path is really to prepare for agility and to make sure that you're very comfortable with the set of tools that you're using. I think agility will happen on a lot of fronts. It's both in the world, both in your organization. We've inside of Microsoft seen a lot of teams shifting around to kind of adapt to different priorities. Having all your tools in one place inside your team, connected like SurveyMonkey is kind of a great investment, to prepare for the agility you may need down the road, because it's all in one place. As you get familiar with it, it becomes a trusted tool that, okay, we need, to go do this poll, and there's a template for that. Getting a familiarity with all those tools now will help you down the road as you prepare for, who knows what's going to happen in the next 6 months. And so, I think that's definitely, what Sam was saying is sort of a great point.
Great. I agree with all that. I think the research actually really backs that up in this sense. We're seeing all of this increased collaboration. It's only beneficial to everyone to continue to increase it in the future. Well, that is our full conversation. That is all the data points that we wanted to kick off today. I want to give a huge thank you to Mike for joining us and to Sam for coming prepared with all of the great insights that both of them were able to share. We will share this link out on social media. If you're watching on LinkedIn now, please share it with your friends. We'll also, in the comments section, we'll add in all of the links to blog posts and links to our other research that we've referenced throughout the conversation. If you're looking for more information on Microsoft Teams or on SurveyMonkey's templates or other products, leave us a comment and we'll get you the information that you need. So thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you for the next time we do one of these Dataverse episodes, which we try to do them every month. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Laura.